What I need is respect. They're treating us like kids. Worse, like sidekicks. We deserve better than this. I thought I was his partner. But not anymore. You're not ready.
Shows created for kids are an interesting phenomenon. We often associate them with thin or flimsy plot structures engineered to deliver simple lessons like teamwork, respect, creativity, etc. These are, of course, essential to development for many of us, despite seeming to lack depth. As we mature, though, we consciously upgrade our tastes to the shows we consider truly impactful, the mainstream prestige TV designed to explore in some way the human experience and offer an opportunity for true self-reflection, rather than teaching about the external world. Now, what if we were to place that goal, that existential exploration, in the context of youth beginning to actively differentiate themselves for the first time? Which theme would you choose to do that? What are the first things we start to worry about in ourselves? Young Justice is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. In my opinion, the first season is the peak of its era. The plot structure and character arcs over those 26 episodes are truly phenomenal. I really recommend watching at least that before I spoil the heck out of it. The premise of the show rests on following a team of adolescent DC sidekicks meant to operate adjacent to the Justice League. And despite seeming like an obvious idea, its potential and execution are nigh on perfection. By construction, sidekicks are incomplete imitations of their full-fledged heroic templates, presented with such proximity that comparisons between student and teacher are constant. So naturally, there is immense pressure on each of these characters to live up to massive, superhuman expectations. Now, mix in the fact that these partners are often teens and we've been given a perfect literary device to represent the progression from sheltered child to fully realized person in the world. When I watch Young Justice Season 1, I see each core character as an embodiment of a different aspect of entering proper society, and together they form a cohesive psychological model of a prototypical journey into adulthood. It's that interpretation that I'd like to share with you today. When we think of the challenges of expectation that adolescents will face, the first that many of us would jump to is the oppressive grip of the status quo. More than any other, this is the expectation where we are most directly told what to be. Each generation has vivid images of the archetypes and cliques that they saw each day at school, and almost all of us would try to align ourselves with at least a few. The overwhelming prevalence of this obstacle in our development is matched by its prevalence in McGann's characterization. While she's not the only member of the team to be a newcomer to human society, no one embraces that environment more than her. Like many of us, McGann has been raised on mainstream media that actively utilizes the archetypes that form in real life, and as a result, can only see the outside world through that segmented lens. And as if this metaphor couldn't get any more overt, she's literally a shapeshifter. At first, it would seem that she is in a perfect position. Able to take any human form, she quickly finds a place among the popular cheerleaders that she admires at school. But of course, there is another side to her motivation. By the end of the season, we learn the complete truth of McGann's origin. On Mars, she is a part of the racial minorities, subjected her whole life to prejudice and racism. She has, more than most, truly experienced the consequences of being on the wrong side of the status quo. Her obsession with human culture and assimilation into it is her defense mechanism, hoping to avoid any more of the tumultuous environment she grew up in. And this is not some minor part of her psyche. We can see in her therapy session how she inadvertently adopts her human persona to avoid her negative feelings, and the lengths she goes to hide her Martian ethnicity.
It was all my fault. Hello, Megan. Who else could take a simple exercise and turn it into a nightmare that terrorizes everyone she cares about?
You've turned white.
No! Oh, you meant Caucasian. Yeah, I'm fine being Megan.
This escape, however, comes with a great cost. On Earth, she consciously robs herself of individuality in order to be accepted. To become Megan, she cannot be McGann. Again, from her therapy session following the disastrous mental simulation and failsafe that resulted from her unrefined telepathy, her human form is an escape from the responsibility her powers bring.
I can't be trusted to use my other powers.
McGann, you're Martian. Not using your natural abilities is like me refusing to speak. Which, by the way, I tried for a while. But not being yourself is never the answer and won't make your feelings of guilt go away. Learn from what happened. Practice until you gain control and regain your confidence.
Megan is an alter ego without substance, devoid of the things that make McGann unique. Her identity as Megan is in itself a counterfeit, directly stolen from the media she watched growing up. When she is fitting in, she isn't really a real person. So what do we take away from Miss Martian's identity crisis? More than anything, McGann is a warning. When we try to jam ourselves into the categories we see laid out for us, it is always at the expense of our individuality. From McGann, we move on to her most persistent suitor, the ginger menace that is Wally West. I know people really like him, and his character definitely gets more bearable as time goes on, but I really can't stand him in Season 1. His abrasiveness, however, is a feature, not a bug. We've all had that friend growing up or that nephew with the obnoxious voice and a little too much self-righteousness, obsessed with presenting a confident persona. On the surface, Wally's effort in meticulously manufacturing his identity resemble those of McGann, with both suppressing elements of their character as defense mechanisms. There is, however, a key difference that lets us draw out a separate lesson. McGann uses denial to fit into the social environment, while Wally uses it to shape the social environment itself. The most prevalent manifestation of this throughout the first season is his relationships with the core female characters McGann and Artemis. The evolution of the tenuous love triangle formed between them is the most significant pillar of Wally's character arc. Of course, his early attraction to McGann leads to the over-exuding confidence that closely resembles traditional forms of conformity to another personality archetype. Things truly get interesting, however, with the introduction of Artemis. With the foresight of their eventual romance, we can interpret their animosity as a denial of their true feelings. What Wally suffers from is the fear of change. By the pilot of the show, he feels a norm being established, i.e. the dynamic of the team, and he feels the expectation to maintain that norm. Artemis's entry threatens that norm, inspiring Wally's fear of both the unknown and his failure to uphold the pre-established patterns. Wally's true moments of growth, then, occur when he is disconnected from that familiarity. His beliefs are first challenged in his encounter with Dr. Fate, where his scientific understanding of the world is threatened by the existence of magic. By the climax of the episode, which no joke is called Denial, his consciousness has literally been removed from the physical plane, forced to be an objective observer. The exposure to the unfamiliar allows a new perspective to take hold and provides the first inkling of flexibility from his self-imposed expectations. This removal from his norms is repeated when Wally must undertake a solo mission to deliver a heart transplant cross-country, missing the long-anticipated team-up with the Justice League, on his birthday no less. He's at first overwhelmingly disappointed, with much of his inner monologue of the episode dominated by plans and attempts to return to the action, that familiarity he is missing. But when he breaks from that sentiment by embracing the uniqueness of his position and his unique ability to save someone in need, he experiences true fulfillment.
The sword was cool, but this just seemed like the right souvenir for the right mission.
Dude, I just heard. You saved an entire country. Major kudos.
What can I say? I'm the man. The man who finally figured out that the sweetest birthday present a lucky stiff like me could ever get was seeing that little girl smile.
The apex of this direction is, as mentioned before, the relationship with Artemis. In multiple separate instances, Wally's predispositions are stripped from him while simultaneously being placed in some intimate situation with Artemis, the first being the memory wipe in Bialia in Bereft. Wally's temperament towards her shifts radically as, without knowledge of the comfort the team brings him and her disruption of it, he has no reason to fear her, or more accurately, he has no reason to fear his feelings for her. The fact that he's attracted to her, in his eyes, makes him the danger to the norm, an unacceptable notion to him. Similarly, in the dramatic failsafe episode, once global society has been upended, there is no longer any norm to be threatened, and Wally is free to show his feelings.
They're dead! Every single alien, if it's the last thing I do!
But, of course, as soon as structure returns, so does his denial.
So you really have no interest in confronting your extreme reaction to Artemis's death?
I'd rather talk about you, babe.
Wally, you're in denial.
I'm comfortable with that.
The last example I'll reference is a bit more subtle, but it is the culmination of these developments. In the penultimate episode of the season, multiple team members come forward with personal secrets and insecurities. As the dynamic that Wally relies on for comfort unwinds, he's finally able to accept his unrealistic expectations for maintaining it, and for the first time shows compassion to Artemis of his own volition. And the rest, as they say, is history. Not all expectations are ones we aim to satisfy. Depending on who sets them and the consequences they carry, some expectations can be opportunities for a strongly motivated rebellion. Those expectations set by figures of authority as we take our first steps towards independence appear to threaten our free will, even if they are often set in our best interest. Our parental figures attempt to shape us into their notions of success, but even as adults, many of us fear becoming our parents. Now, imagine those parents are comic book villains. Such is the life of Artemis Croc, a good apple fallen far from a tree of bad ones.
Artemis, this is a chance to better your life. A chance I never had.
Okay, Mom. I'll go. I'll go for you.
While a lot of Artemis's struggle consists of her unstable childhood and apathetic family, we're more interested in her reaction to that rather than just the experience of it. Her conflicts in the first season come from the outright rejection of her past and the complications that arise out of hiding it from her peers. The best example of this is in the episode Insecurity. Seriously, these episode titles basically write the script for me. The episode consists of multiple close encounters between the team and the active convicts of Artemis's father and sister, the relation unbeknownst to everyone else.
I knew. Hey, I'm a detective.
Throughout the mission, Artemis repeatedly puts the objective and her teammates in danger to prevent further interactions with her family, terrified that one of them could make the connection and in doing so, project the negative traits associated with them onto her. Artemis spends the entire mission running from the expectations she fears her friends will have for her should they know the truth. But of course, blood isn't something you can just outrun. Her fear inevitably complicates the mission, holds the team back, and allows the enemy to escape and gain a critical advantage, not to mention sours her relationship with Wally.
Artemis? Are you that freaked out about Arrow joining the team you had to prove yourself by bringing down the bad guys solo? Please tell me I'm wrong. Well, nice going. What you proved is that you're insecure and selfish.
Artemis actually has an opportunity at another point in the show to see what total disconnect from family looks like. In Secrets, she and Zatanna encounter Harm, a psychopath who was eventually revealed to have murdered his own younger sister to purify himself from the things that tether him to the world. Naturally, they are both horrified, but is it really all that different from Artemis's motivations? Both are attempting to grow beyond their circumstances by severing ties to those closest to them. Harm has just fully realized that goal while Artemis remains in a state of uncertainty as to the outcome. But we see how cold Harm has become and the guilt he still holds on to, and that no matter how much we want to resent our family in some moments, truly ridding ourselves of them is self-destructive. And by the finale, when Artemis is given the chance, she chooses to share the truth with the team. And instead of rejecting that connection, she uses it to their advantage for the greater good. Now, while most of us can't literally use our familial ties to trick the bad guys, we can figuratively use our experiences and lessons learned from them to better ourselves. We can embrace the environment we come from without feeling subjected to the expectations they might bring. Relationships with parental figures don't have to be so rocky. For plenty of us, those who have had a hand in raising us are our biggest idols. Our admiration means we want to become them to some extent, but our reverence for their achievements places that bar prohibitively high. Now let me introduce you to Dick Grayson, aka the Greatest Robin, who, depending on how you look at it, either has the greatest or most challenging role model, Batman. A central conflict early in the show is the question of the leader of the team. Dick's extensive training, cool demeanor, and resemblance to his mentor, an already effective leader, initially make him seem like the clear choice. But youth becomes a detriment to his leadership capabilities, lacking the necessary patience and understanding of his peers.
Of course I'm distraught!
Well, get trot or get dead.
How can you be so calm?
Practice. Been doing this since I was 9.
Aqualad ends up being the best candidate, but as Aqualad assumes these duties, he leaves Dick with a promise.
Then I accept the burden until you are ready to lift it from my shoulders. You were born to lead this team. Maybe not now, but soon.
This is the first in a series of reality checks Dick undergoes throughout the first season. While it is of course humbling, moving him slightly farther away from his goals to match Batman, it nevertheless reinforces that those goals should be achieved. While superficially this may seem hopeful, and to some extent it is, one could also interpret it as dangerous, upholding the unrealistic expectations laid out for him. Is first revived in Downtime, where early in the episode, this interaction goes down.
I need to talk to Aqualad. Just Aqualad.
And suddenly, all of Dick's self-perceived shortcomings are thrown right in his face. He is not a leader, and from his perspective, senses disappointment from his mentor, and he reacts accordingly.
Just Aqualad.
But the key to this scene is that disappointment never existed in the first place. We can't be expected to correctly decipher every passing remark from those close to us, and we often, quite selfishly, assume it's always about us. Dick's insecurities turn a simple instruction into true emotional turmoil and challenge his very identity. And this is confirmed by Bruce's response to what, at this point, is the closest he has to a son, feeling shunned.
Master Bruce wishes to see you.
What's this?
Training. Hand-eye coordination.
One-on-one?
If you think you can handle it.
Bruce is proud of who Dick is, not a narrow idea of what he could be. Nevertheless, Dick is given the chance to pursue those lofty expectations he has set for himself. The goals in themselves are not problematic. In fact, they are admirable. The issues arise when we bully ourselves for falling short, or we feel incomplete when we achieve them anyway. In Failsafe, Dick takes on the mantle of team leader in the most dire situation yet. Now, of course, this is a simulation engineered with the worst possible outcomes, but the trauma it brings is nothing short of genuine. Dick gets to fulfill his expectations, but instead of pride, he is given a sort of clarity.
Hurting. Try traumatized. I finally become leader and wind up sending all of my friends to their deaths. I know I did what I had to, but I hated it. When we started this team, I was desperate to be in charge. Not anymore. And that's not even the worst of it. You can't tell Batman.
Nothing leaves this room.
I always wanted, expected, to grow up and become him. And the hero bit, I'm still all in. But that thing inside of him, the thing that drives him to sacrifice everything for the sake of his mission, that's not me. I don't want to be the Batman anymore.
And I think Bruce would be proud to hear that. A responsible parent shouldn't want to transform their child into themselves. They should recognize their own flaws as a human being and see their children as an opportunity to grow beyond them.
Robin needed to help bring the men who murdered his family to justice.
So he could turn out like you?
So that he wouldn't.
It is important for us to have role models. So much is unclear when we are young that having someone point the way is invaluable. But we risk letting that respect transform into worship. And if we expect ourselves to become our heroes, we will inevitably fail and be left without that respect for ourselves. We must accept that we are not those icons, but we can certainly be their equals. As mentioned before, Aqualad is the elected leader of the team for the majority of the first season. Calendar is certainly the most measured and mature member of the team, a persona held in very high regard by the other characters. When discussing Robin, I was worried about the brutal expectations set on ourselves to pursue those we respect. But what about the other side of the coin? How do those we respect cope with the expectations we place upon them? Calder assumes a massive responsibility upon becoming team leader. Responsibility is an unavoidable side effect of independence and mutual respect. And of course, always attached to responsibility is the expectation that we will carry it out. But it is all too easy for responsibilities to stack up and outpace our bandwidth to handle them. We first see the tolls of leadership in Downtime, where Calder is forced to face distractions to his obligations, in this case his worsening homesickness. It's a conflict that is more or less smoothly resolved within the episode's runtime, but serves to show the sacrifice Calder makes to support his role on the surface.
You can split your time between the surface and the sea, but not your mind. Either you're here 100% or you need to walk away. Make a decision, Calder.
A regular partner of responsibility is choice. Choices that often don't have a clear or correct answer and have ramifications for others. Calder is faced with such a choice as a critical plot element of the first season. It comes to his attention that there may be a turncoat amongst the team, and it becomes his decision on how to deal with it. His choice, which is arguably the correct one, is to keep this information a secret from the rest of the team. While this fulfills his professional responsibilities, to his teammates it appears as if he is failing his responsibilities as a friend. Calder cannot succeed in both, but is expected by either side to do so. One of the strengths of Calder's character is his self-awareness, letting him understand the unfairness of those expectations. And his maturity lets him communicate those frustrations while maintaining a grip on his duties.
What gets me is how nonchalant he is about not telling us.
He should be chalant.
Way chalant. Extremely chalant.
How can we be a team if he doesn't trust us with his secrets? Or if Connor doesn't trust us to take care of ourselves?
Did he really think you or I could have been the mole? We've known each other for years.
Trust is a two-way street, and you know they'd hate it if we kept secrets from them. Not that we'd do that. Never.
Enough! Captain Marvel has been captured, and we must act as a team to save him.
Under your leadership? I don't think so.
This is not up for debate. You all chose me to lead. When the mission is over, if you wish to select a new leader, I will happily step down. But until that time, I am in command here.
While this shows a triumph over the difficult situations Calder is subjected to, we can see how he reacts to his perceived failures as well. As we often do in Season 1, we return to failsafe. Calder is actually one of the first team members to perish in the simulation, sacrificing himself to let the others escape. While we may see this as the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate fulfillment of his responsibilities as a hero, he sees it as a lapse of judgment.
I was the general, but behaved like a soldier and sacrificed myself. I am not fit for command.
We see that no matter how Calder acted, he would have violated one of his obligations, whether it be to the mission or to those who needed his help. And at first, that contradiction cannot be accepted. But Calder is strong, and as he considers the alternatives, he understands that he is the only one capable of carrying that burden. At this moment, Calder begins to comprehend the impossible expectations he has been set. He will seldom be able to make the perfect choice or pursue one objective without forfeiting another. He accepts the truth that mistakes happen, no matter how pure our intentions or how diligent our efforts. Much of this video has focused on subverting the problematic expectations set by ourselves and the external environment. Having our identity reduced to a set of preconceived notions of our capabilities can choke our individuality and independence, so sometimes those must be flouted. But once we have achieved that, where do we go from there? As children, we are bombarded with the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? While this is usually just permission to talk about the dumb things kids are passionate about, it simultaneously has been priming us for a different question we'll ask for the rest of our lives. What is my purpose? Most of us won't ever get a satisfying answer to that question. But what if you knew the exact reason you were put on this planet?
I am the Superboy, a genomorph, a clone made from the DNA of the Superman, created to replace him should he perish, to destroy him should he turn from the light.
And then, what if you threw that security away? On the surface, Connor is the paragon of what I've been preaching. He lives his newly given life in opposition to the assumptions others make of him. He refuses to become the weapon he was born to be, and meets suspicion of his intentions with stiff resistance. But this is not a state void of conflict. Saying Connor lacks direction at the start of the show would be a severe understatement. The most prevalent symptom of this is his rage. Season 1 Connor operates on a hair trigger, subjecting even the slightest inconvenience to his steely temperament. Try to stay with me, but lacking a grand motivation or purpose means lacking an abstraction to attach importance to. So by comparison, even the mundane becomes the most significant aspect of life and correspondingly deserves the most significant emotional reaction. While Connor staunchly repels the negative expectations, he lacks many of the positive ones that we utilize as driving forces or emotional outlets. This is taken to the extreme in Bereft, when he is stripped of his personality entirely, reduced to a violent animal. So how do we resolve this? Certainly we must find our purpose. But this must be done carefully. Connor's first attempts to do so rely entirely on sourcing that motivation from others. He in fact partially defaults to the purpose he was born with as the Superboy, to become the Superman. And he succeeds from a certain point of view. In Failsafe, the team takes on the duties of the Justice League, and despite his trademark pushback against classification from others, Superman's role is now his.
See? It is Superman! I told you he wouldn't leave us out here alone!
I don't know. He looks kind of young. Where's the cape?
I'm not Superman.
I don't know who you are, son. And right now, I don't care. You wear the S, and you got the job done.
I'm not Superman.
But after the simulation has ended and this achievement is processed, we see what it has cost him.
Here's the ugly truth. I wasn't devastated. Even with Superman, Tornado, you, the whole League dead. Even though I didn't save Wolf, watched Artemis and Kaldor die, and abandoned McGann, I felt at peace. See, from the moment I first opened my eyes in that Cadmus pod, there's been one thing I've wanted and feared. To know what it is to be Superman. And I knew. So I was happy. Everyone I care about dead or traumatized, and I'm happy. How do I get past the guilt of that? How do I live with myself?
To fulfill this goal, it has cost the world. To achieve this mark, one that was chosen for him, Connor had to lose everything else that mattered to him. In essence, he has lost himself to that disingenuous motivation. Such an idea, losing oneself to pursue expectations set by others, is explored across an entire spectrum with Connor. When using Lex Luthor's shields to more closely embody Superman's abilities, Connor loses emotional control more than usual. He fully embraces that which is given and prescribed to him, and as a result, becomes a twisted version of his ideal self. Then the most extreme case is Project Match, another superclone with no human DNA whatsoever. Connor's human DNA represents the autonomy he carries after leaving his prison behind, while Match was never given that chance. Subsequently, Match has the physical potential of Superman but is utterly unhinged, more closely resembling Connor's mindless rampage in the desert. All of these examples serve to highlight the risks of parsing others' expectations of us in search of our own purpose. True, healthy, satisfying aspirations must come from our choices and our feelings. For Connor, that comes from his love for McGann. His ambition to be a good partner and support system for her, while yes, is inherently connected to an outside element, is sourced entirely from himself. So when it is attained, it is done so without paying the price of who he is, allowing for genuine satisfaction. Expectations and aspirations are key avenues for us to define our identity, rationalize our actions, and interact with others. They are often the first evidence of gaining our independence and self-determination. The first season of Young Justice is a series of case studies of this very process, awarding autonomy to youth and letting them develop their individuality, coping with the great expectations they encounter as they make their way in the world. Through the circumstances of their larger-than-life conflicts and mentors, our young heroes struggle against the status quo, fear of change to social norms, escaping the preconceptions of our families, inadequacy in our goals, bearing responsibility, and finding purpose. By watching these characters overcome these hurdles and form emotional connections to their growth, we may yet be able to take inspiration from them to form healthier relationships with the expectations in our own lives. Thanks.